boys and girls. I first wanted to start by apologizing for yesterday's blooper with my video. I hit the wrong button when I was trying to switch the cameras, so I got cut off. But I'm going to show you today what I was going to show you yesterday. And also there was a problem with the link on Monday and the email. So I hope everybody can go back and listen to chapters 20 through 24, or I can't even remember anymore. I think it was actually 16 through 19 that some of you might have missed. So if you missed a few chapters, make sure you go to YouTube and you can see all of the videos that I've posted. Okay, so we're going to pick up today with chapter 25, and it's called The Summer. Spring melted into summer, and the wolves were nowhere to be seen. Perhaps Roz had scared off the pack for good, or perhaps the heat was keeping them away. You see, it was the hottest time of year on the farm. The sun was scorching, the fields were baking, the pond was drying up, and foul odors were floating all throughout the dairy. During dry spells, the farm's powerful sprayers were activated. Water shot out in long, misty arcs, and the land turned deeper shades of green. When the hayfields were lush and ready to be harvested, Roz fired up the mower and the baler. The giant machines rolled out of the shed and down the long driveway. Shortly afterward, they rolled back in, leaving bales of hay strewn across the stubbly fields. The cows and the humans spent hot days indoors. Only when the sun set and the air began to cool would they venture outside. The herd strolled out to graze under the stars. The children ran out to chase fireflies, and sometimes even Mr. Sharif stepped out to stretch his stiff legs. Trees swished in the evening breeze. Heat lightning flickered on the horizon. I don't know how to say this word. I think it's cicadas sang their summer songs. If you get a chance, Google that and let's see what a cicada is. I think that's how you say it. Must be some kind of bug. Let's see who's going to be the first person to email me what a cicada is. When Roz wasn't farming, she was searching for a way to escape. Everything hinged on the children. The robot needed their help, but she just couldn't bring herself to tell them the truth. It was too risky. Mr. Sharif asked the children not to distract Roz from her work, but they did it anyway. They'd sneak out of the house and order the robot to play with them. Together they told stories, rode bicycles, lay in the grass watching fluffy clouds drift by. Summer was tornado season. On occasion, thick clouds would start funneling downward, reaching for the ground. So far, the funnel clouds had all receded back into the sky before doing any damage, but it was only a matter of time before a tornado touched down. Before we start the next chapter, I want to go back to that word again, cicada. I'm going to spell that for you in case you want to figure out what it is and send me an email. It's C-I-C-A-D-A-S. Let me spell that one more time so you can look that up. C-I-C-A-D-A-S. Let's see who the first person to respond is. All right, chapter 26, the tornado. This chapter sounds kind of scary to me. The weather forecast warned of possible tornadoes that day, but despite their scientific equipment, experts still couldn't predict exactly when or where a tornado would strike. So most farmers carried on with their usual tasks while keeping a watchful eye on the skies. Roz was out in the fields, loading hay bales onto the flatbed truck, as towering, puffy clouds rose up from the south. Raindrops lightly tapped against her body, and she thought nothing of it. The wind began to blow, and still the robot continued with her work. It wasn't until the first flash of lightning that Roz finally called it quits. She climbed onto the back of the truck, and it automatically rolled across the hayfield toward the driveway. The storm developed quickly. Dark clouds started swirling and bulging downward, lower and lower, like a giant twisting finger pointing at the countryside. A tornado was beginning to form. When the truck reached the driveway, Roz hollered, "Drive faster!" The engine revved, the tires kicked up gravel, and the robot held on tight. The funnel cloud continued stretching downward. It brushed the tree line, and leaves exploded into the air. Dust whirled around and around, rising higher with each spin. Then the tornado touched the ground. A siren sounded in the distance, but the tornado was growing noisier and angrier as it blew in from the fields, and the siren was quickly lost to the howling winds. The truck charged up the driveway and into the cluster of farm buildings. Roz looked ahead at the house and saw frightened faces in the windows. "Go to the storm shelter," she hollered in her loudest voice. Then she leaped off the truck and ran to help the Sharifs. That looks like a big tornado. Leaves and sticks flew sideways, whipping against the robot's body, knocking her off balance. Behind her, the farm buildings rattled and groaned. The milking parlor was shaking violently. With a long, terrible screech, its entire roof peeled off and sailed away on the wind. 4 blurry shapes appeared in the backyard. Mr. Sharif shielded his face and hobbled alongside the house toward the storm shelter. He threw open the door and waved everyone down the stairs. Oscar went first, then Jaya, but Jad wasn't moving. "Come on, Jad," yelled his father. The boy stood still, shaggy hair flying everywhere, and stared up at the towering, twisting tornado. He used to have nightmares about tornadoes, but this was no nightmare. It was real, and it was getting closer. The clouds swirled faster. The wind roared louder. The trees bent down to the ground. Jad suddenly felt strong arms around him, and Roz whisked him to safety. Mr. Sharif reached up from inside the shelter, desperately grasping for his son. And just when Roz thrust the boy into his father's arms, a blast of wind slammed the shelter door closed and swept our robot away. At first, Roz didn't realize she was in the tornado. She kept expecting to fall back to the ground, but the wind only lifted her higher and higher. She saw the treetops, the rooftops, the faraway fields. More of the countryside came into view with each spin around the funnel cloud. Our robot's survival instincts were blaring in her head, urging her to protect herself. But what could she do? The tornado was in control. The winds whirled her up and around, up and around. Roz could almost imagine what it was like to fly, and she thought of Bright Bill. It seemed her final moments would be spent in her son's airborne world. Roz wasn't the only thing swept away in the storm. Dust, gravel, leaves, branches, fence posts, and farm equipment were all swirling around with her. The robot was pelted by flying objects, big and small. She never even saw the shovel coming. The heavy tool wheeled around the tornado and clang! It hit the back of her head. Everything suddenly went dark, while Roz was still up in the sky. Well, we can't stop there. Chapter 27, The Broken Robot. The Sharifs found their robot, powered off, lying in a ditch by the road. Poor Roz. Her left leg was crumpled beneath her torso. Her right arm was twisted around a tree trunk, and her whole body was covered in new scrapes and dents. Together, the family heaved Roz into the bed of the pickup truck, where Oscar was waiting. The dog sniffed her broken body while the Sharifs climbed in beside him. Then Rambler turned around. The road was littered with debris from the storm, and the truck had to drive slowly. As they bounced along, Jad pressed the button on the back of Roz's head. She powered up, and her garbled voice automatically said, "Hello, I am Rozum, Unit 7134. But you may call me Roz." Oscar licked the poor robot's face, and Jad leaned in close. "Roz, can you hear me? Are you okay?" "Hello, Jad. I have broken limbs and minor damage to my computer brain. My systems are now repairing themselves. Please stand by." The robot's glowing eyes pulsed as her recovery program did its job. And before long, Roz sounded like her old self. "My computer brain is now fully functional." Jad wrapped his arms around the robot and sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Roz. It's my fault the tornado got you. Please don't be mad." Now Jaya was crying too. She pulled her brother and her dog, and her robot into a big hug. Mr. Sharif wasn't much of a hugger, but he reached over and laid his hand on Roz's shoulder. They stayed like that for some time, quietly holding one another. The shock of the tornado was fresh, and it felt good to be together. "Mr. Sharif, I apologize for leaving the farm without your permission," said the robot. The man smiled. "No need to apologize, Roz. I'm just glad you're alive." "How are the cows?" said Roz. "The farm is a mess, but the cows are fine," said Mr. Sharif. "We'll take you to the repair shop right now, and you'll be with the herd again soon." And that's where we're going to stop for today with The Wild Robot Escapes. Okay, so today is April the 8th. Heaven is under our feet as well as over our heads. And that's by Henry David Thoreau. 365 Days of Wonder. Positive thoughts for every day. That's how we're going to get through all of this, boys and girls. We have to think in our mind all the positive thoughts. Lift up everybody in your house, okay? Show kindness and compassion and grace all day long. Be helpers for your mom and your dad. That's my advice for today. Okay, let's see. I didn't pick out a joke, so let me look at one real quick, and then I'm going to show you what I was going to show you yesterday. Why do farmers bury their money in the ground? I didn't even know they did that. Why do farmers bury their money in the ground? They want to have rich soil. And if you don't understand that, you can ask your mom and dad about rich soil. Okay, now I'm going to hit the right button, and I'm going to show you the sign that I made for all of our military children in our classes. Okay, let's see. All right, got the right. Here we go. Here's Mrs. Williams' desk every day where I'm reading to you. And let me open this. Okay, here's the sign that I made. Strong, brave, courageous, flexible, resilient, military child. And all of Mrs. Williams and Mrs. Strickland's children are strong, brave, courageous, flexible, and resilient. However, April is designated as Military Child Month, so we want to give a shout out to all of our military children. Mrs. Williams and Mrs. Strickland love you all. Hope you have a great night. See you tomorrow. Oh, I completely forgot. One important thing. Let me turn the camera back around. So boys and girls, in my slide today, I'm going to put the Zoom meeting for Friday. And Friday at 2 o'clock, we're going to have snacks with Mrs. Williams. So decide what you're going to bring to the meeting, and we will meet on Friday, 2 o'clock, Zoom meeting, and we'll have snack together. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.